Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Thor issue 30. Ah, good cover there to show that they actually go after Corvus Glaive and Thor's sister, Lausa. So, I really enjoyed this one. It set up some stuff for what's kind of going to be happening, and even gave us some information that I didn't even really know about. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. So we see that instead of encountering the actual boar, it's pretty much like a time echo. We start seeing what was going on with the mountain, and that the Valkyries, let me see here. Brun wasn't going to follow Boar's instructions. It's like there's a lot of things that they would do, but not this. He then called her disloyal, and the Runa wanted to see what was kind of going on. And he pretty much gave the order to, like, burn it, and he said that it would work because the stranger's not of their time. He wouldn't be here if it didn't work. And it's like, alright, and pretty much gets the Valkyrie to kind of, like, help out. And we see that, like, Boar is like, how I'm, like, immortal to try and escape their fate and everything like that. And then we pretty much see that Thanos had pretty much time traveled for some reason. And I think this is linking up with, like, Thor's whole vision of his death and all that. And this is interesting because you never really see Thanos make this kind of argument, like how he hits at a god to dismiss those deemed beneath him. It's like, you really do that a lot yourself, Thanos. Hoarding power, squander it with their lack of vision, to meet the concerns of those they rule with insufferable silence. After all, what would a god know about death? And that's kind of the important bit because of Thanos' whole thing with death. And then, of course, they start fighting, and Thor asks where Runa was at this point, and she was, like, on the western front. And then, of course, the mountain blows, and we see Bor kind of reminiscing again. This is where Thor brings up that it's like a time echo, where it's like, we can't trust anything in this place. And he asks what happened to Thanos, and of course he knows that the stranger is Thanos, but Runa doesn't. And he's like, trust me, he was. So we shift back, and we see Corvus Glaive with Lausa doing all that kind of stuff. She's weak from the screaming and the fighting, from bloodlust. It's like, this dude's been, like, cutting her for Bor's blood to get through what's kind of going on. It's like, I don't really like that. Screw you, Corvus Glaive, for that kind of shit. And of course, he's telling her to stop, and she said she'd rather die than help him, and talking about how he lied to her, and he's like, everyone lies. And this, we get into pretty much his whole kind of worldview. It's like, it's fucked up. It's like, everybody lies to themselves, and everybody lies to each other to make life bearable, to make the world make sense. You make up your own truths, beliefs, and principles, your own value, about, like, the indifference of the universe. It's like, and you're not doing that? But then saying that she's got value because of Bor's blood, as he then goes to continue to get more blood from her for trying to continue forward. And then, of course, Runa starts talking about, like, how people confuse that the Valkyries have control over death, and that Bor was always suspicious of it. He didn't like that we had loyalties beyond him. No leader like that does. Even Odin kind of shows that. Thor, not so much at this point. And she says that they have a commitment to the dead, and saying that God Kings have a hard time accepting that there are things outside of their control. As Thor's like, hey, is that directed at me? Oh, not at all, my king. You're nothing like your grandfather, I hope. And it's like, yeah. And then we see them asking about these creatures, and they're actually memories and stuff. And we see that Draugr are hunting them, and we see that we are told about, like, how Draugr are formed, how the descent of the Draugr begins, then had bitterness, hopelessness, hatred, and talking about aiming for their heads. And then we get this really kind of cool, giant kind of page, seeing them fighting through them, and talking about, like, how Draugr are made, and what kind of goes with them. And we see that the Draugr are pretty much eating those things. The memories and the Draugr are like vultures, scavenging the carcasses of the soul, not for flesh, but for thoughts, feelings, memories. And it's like, okay, that's interesting to have the Draugr be zombies like that. It's like, oh, interesting. Whatever is left when the soul dies. Let's see. Talking about what they should do with the Draugr. And Thor's like, what about the souls? Dies. Shouldn't they have been brought to the afterlife? Bor's sorcerers theorized that like a decomposing body could fertilize barren land, the soul could be pulled to pieces and reused. It's like, huh, that's not a good thing to kind of do, as we see them kind of dealing with that. And then like forging it into something new. And saying that it takes great power to break a soul to pieces. And Bor still had the shell of the Galactus Sea. It's like, oh god. He used it as tinder, burning it in the deep, eternal flames of this mountain. It was reckless, unpredictable. It was, as we see them looking at this mirror, Runa sees something different than Thor. Thor does not really talk about what he sees, other than it makes his blood freeze, as they then pretty much get to where Corvus Glaive and Lausa are, as we see that Corvus Glaive's using his glaive to pretty much try and cut through. And it can cut through stone, carbon, vibranium. It can split atoms, but it can't screw around with Asgardian blood magic. See the dead kind of mucking around. We say Lausa has like a choice to either tell why it's not working or try and fight back, and she decides to use the last of her strength to fight back as the mountain starts rumbling around her and them. And he pretty much tries to say, like, any closer and your sister dies. Talking about how, like, Corvus Glaive feels scared and elated. His the power he craves is here, still undiluted after all this time. Thor's like, is nothing beneath you, hurting a child and everything like that? And of course the Draugr stuff coming in, and Thor unleashes like a pack of like lightning hounds, which is kind of crazy. And Runa's asking how he did that, and he's like, I don't know. And that's not good because the magic of the mountain is kind of affecting him. And they decide to kind of keep the Draugr at bay. And he pretty much has Runa kind of take Lausa and try and get her out with everything that's kind of going on. But Lausa decides to also take the glaive because she remembers how seeing the woman hidden and quiet and not feeling a wink of fear, as evidently it sounds like she like handed it to someone else. It's like, huh, that's different. And of course Corvus Glaive is asking if Thor's going to kill him, and Thor's like, no. And then calls him a coward as well as a brute. And then there are many fates worse than death, Corvus. And then we see that Odin's talking to Thor now, saying that he's in pain. And he's like, no, there are not anymore. The significance of his last words will not be clear until later, as the lightning hounds rip him and looks like it kill him. And Thor's like, I didn't do that. And then Runa's like, we need to get out of this place. And then Thor's like, you need to go. I need to know what my grandfather hid behind these doors, if I can open them. And of course Lausa tells him that like Bor's blood's the trick. And he commands Runa to leave. And we see that Odin's saying that it hurts and to not do this, as he put Mjolnir in the receptacle and put his blood in as well. And let's see. In the time to come, Thor will think back on this moment and wonder if things would have unfolded differently if he walked away. And Odin screaming, make it stop, and begging his son to leave the place and let the secrets of his bloodline in the past. It would have made no difference, and he says he's sorry, father. Meanwhile, the magic warped beetle had completed its journey from the cavern to Midgard to relay a message to his master, as we see that there was a bug following them around to give info to Doom. So it's like, oh shit. He's like, alright. Because he says at last, it's like, well, we'll have to see how that kind of shit works out, and how Doom is going to factor in to what's going on with Thanos and Thor's future and everything. But, like, I'm just glad that they got Lausa back. And it's interesting to see that Corvus Glaive was ripped apart by, like, lightning hounds that were not under Thor's control. I always had a kind of soft spot for, like, a brother-sister kind of thing. And this was kind of cool. I didn't know that much about her, but she endured a hell of a lot, and I'm just like, screw you, Corvus Glaive. And it'll be interesting to see what Thor has learned about his lineage, and what his grandfather hid in this mountain, and what's going on with it, and how it will affect things going forward. Because there's a lot of stuff at play. Thor's vision of his death with Thanos with the Infinity Encrusted Mjolnir and the Black Gauntlet, Odin inhabiting Mjolnir, and everything going on with Valhalla and the Valkyries. So we'll see kind of what goes on. There's a lot of kind of cool stuff that can go on. Hopefully it gets onto a more consistent schedule. I love Thor. It's one of the big kind of threes that I usually always kind of go for in the Marvel Comics, and hopefully it gets back into a kind of better kind of schedule. I know it's been kind of wonky because of the shifting of the creative teams, because I didn't even know we were pretty much shifting creative teams until it kind of pretty much happened. So we'll see how this kind of goes forward, what kind of interesting kind of story ramifications will come in, and what the God of Thunder will do. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.